Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Amazing experts from all over with amazing insights. I'm your host, Michael Andre Ford in Texas. I help people let go long enough to see, feel, hear angels, relatives, light beings, all sorts of unconditional love figures from all over. Takes a little guts to do that. It can be scary. I've been doing this 12 years, but the guests on this show are on their own unique life healing paths, both for themselves and donating time to others or giving service to others. And today, no exception, from Oregon, we have Dianne Porchia. I'm so excited to have her on. She's been on the Heal documentary. She has a bunch of modalities, but I'm going to sum it up this way. She's a healer. She's somebody who raises her own frequency to hold the space, to connect to others, to help them drop to their heart. Confront might not be the right word, release what they're holding on to then be able to breathe easier and walk a smoother path in life. And she's super, super talented. I'm going to also start with one quick quote from Winnie the Pooh. Piglet once asked Winnie the Pooh, "How do you spell love?" And Winnie the Pooh said, "You don't spell it, you feel it." And if I had to try to, again, sum up some of her work without knowing all the technical jargon, I'm horrible with names and jargon. I would just say she helps people let go, begin feeling with the heart, healing with the heart, and get moving, living with the heart. With that, Dianne, welcome to Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Hey, that's a great introduction, Michael. Thank you very much. I love that you said, read something from, Piglet, because I'm up here at the eco farm sanctuary that I'm creating, and I'll talk more about that later. And we just got little pigs. So I just came inside. There's like 10 of these piglets outside, and they're really funny.
Will people be able to visit the sanctuary?
Yeah, so let me just I'll backtrack a bit because there's a lot of information that goes before the eco farm. So I guess you're familiar with me and my work from Heal documentary, and I use the principles and practice of mind-body medicine to help reduce stress and support immune function through a holistic approach that addresses the physical level, the mental level, the emotional level, and the spiritual level. And I've been doing this work for like 24 years now, and it's really great. I work with people from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, religious backgrounds, and it's great. And I'd say 65% of the people that I work with have some sort of diagnosis of an autoimmune or stress-related disorder, and another 30% are diagnosed with some sort of advanced stage cancer. And, looking at what's been showing up, and I've been tracking, my clients and their history. I have a very complete intake form, and I've been tracking the things that show up, and it's very interesting. We've got this explosion of autoimmune and cancer in this country, which is just crazy. And my take on the development of these diseases is that it's a toxic accumulation over time, right? Toxic stress on the body. And that toxic stress can be either physical toxic stress from injury to the body that's creating stress in different parts of the body. So maybe nutrients or blood flow isn't getting to someplace. It can be chemical or environmental toxic stress, and that could be from pesticides, it could be from chemicals that are in our environment, in our home or workplace. Also, the chemicals that we put in our body, pharmaceuticals. I mean, my God, I think that the US like consumes, I think it's something like 80 or 90% of all the pharmaceuticals that are produced in the world. It's like crazy how many pharmaceuticals that people take in this country. And so that accumulated toxic stress on the body from those chemicals and all the side effects that come with it is also a part of it. And then also accumulated mental and emotional toxic stress. And that's the area that I deal with from a spiritual perspective. And I see my wellness practice and what I'm creating here up in Oregon, because I live down in Topanga, California most of the time, and I travel back and forth here to Oregon. And I'm creating a Portia holistic eco farm and wildlife sanctuary on 46 acres of land that our family has up here. And it's beautiful property. It has 5 distinct ecosystems on the property, and it includes flat pasture land, which we're going to be using for regenerative farming. Um, and then it has a beautiful oak savanna, just beautiful large heritage oaks that are gorgeous. Right now, the little piglets are out there underneath there. And then, and then we've got about 6 acres of riparian and woodland area. And then beyond that, in the way back, there's about 10 or 15 acres of wetlands with beavers. So I'm real excited about the beavers there. And, you know, so I see that, my vision for this property is to turn it into a place for the practice, study, and education of regenerative farming using the rotation of different animal species and crops, and then eco conservation of these beautiful ecosystems we have, and human health and wellness through nature and living in right relationship with Mother Earth. So that's my mission statement for this property. And I love coming up here.
I love it. Can you tell us a little bit about like before 2001, where were you sort of for some life stages, whatever you would want to share? Where were you for a career path? How did it shift? Or is this something since childhood you've had as a skill for allowing, listening, or paying attention and then helping others? Can you take us through a little bit of your origin story?
Yeah, so my origin story. I've always been an animal lover, My first pet that my parents bought me, I always wanted a horse and they bought me a donkey. So my first pet was little Chiquita. She was an 8-month-old donkey and she was my playmate. And I guess as I was growing up and, trying to figure out what kind of career path I wanted, I thought about becoming an art therapist or a dance therapist because I was drawn to both of those and studied those. Um, and then, I don't know, life took me in a lot of different directions, got married, got into interior design, and then going through divorce. I was married for 16 years and a stepmom to my husband's 3 kids. And going through divorce, I was trying to, look for a higher purpose, trying to save my marriage. And I went to and enrolled in a course at Esalen, which I don't know if you're familiar with Esalen and Big Sur. And I wanted my husband to join me with it. It was called New Beginnings. And he decided not to go. He was already out of the marriage and with someone else. And so I went by myself, and it turned out to be a new beginning for me. And through my own healing process, spending a lot of time up at Esalen, doing workshops there, participating in other people's workshops. I now do my own workshops there. And then also receiving therapeutic massage and touch and spending a lot of time in the healing baths that are there. So for people who have not been to Esalen, they have exquisite baths with hot, water that comes right out of the earth. And these hot baths are right on the cliffs of the Pacific Ocean. So you are soaking and looking out at this spectacular view, day and night. And they have a particular type of massage there called Esalen massage. And I was receiving a lot of that. And going through my own healing process, during my marriage, I had kind of held in all the emotions, the hurt, the fears, and all of that. And when I was receiving massage up at Esalen, the floodgates opened, and it was like all of a sudden, this woman who was working on me with her loving touch, I just started crying, and I had been suppressing all of these emotions for a lot of years. And I realized at that moment, is like, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that I was holding on to so much suppressed hurt. And then in another massage session, um, I got off the table and all of a sudden I was like bent over and I couldn't stand up straight. All of that stuck energy like lodged in my lower back and was like, oh my God, what happened? I thought my massage therapist had hurt me, you know? And I learned that it was actually just that stuck energy that was moving through my body. So that was an introduction to body work as as something that was therapeutic and not just something that pampered women did to, feel good. And then so you know, trying to figure out, well, what did I want to do? Um I needed to figure out what career path I wanted for myself, and I didn't know what. And this massage, I was receiving a lot of massage at that time, and um I started asking my massage therapist questions. Is this like a viable business? Could I like make a living for myself doing this? And the feedback that I got was yes. And so that was my first step on the healing path, professionally. I got certified in massage and a lot of different other modalities and cranial sacral work. And then I had met a wonderful man, Charles Chunka. He was a Native American man who taught me about the Native American approach to energy work, calling in the energy of the plants and the animals. And so it's similar to Reiki, but just different. And so, I learned about subtle energies and then, the physical stuff that's, stored in muscle tissue. And then I had a background in dance already and art. I have a master's degree in fine art. And I practiced massage therapy for a while, and I knew at some point that I wanted to progress into something more. I didn't want to stay stuck with just that. And so I was looking at acupuncture, homeopathy, and I went to a friend of mine, Dr. Mark Holmes, and he was a doctor of Oriental medicine. And I was going to get some career guidance from him, you know. And when I went to go visit him, he was officing at that time in the same building as the University of Santa Monica. And in the window, I saw master's degree in spiritual psychology and was like, that's the missing link, right? To a holistic approach, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So without really understanding what spiritual psychology was, because I hadn't heard of it, this was, 26 years ago. And so I signed up and, I had to write this letter of intention, not knowing what I was doing really, but I just wrote something so I could get in and hopefully they accepted me, which they did. And it was that next step that brought it all together. And for my thesis for that program, I came up with Portia's Wish, and it's the holistic approach that I use. And it's WISH is an acronym for Whole Integrated Self Health, the path to healing, loving, and living consciously. So that's the background on how I came into this work. And now I'm expanding it into, an eco farm and wildlife sanctuary. And I'm very passionate about that at this time in history, in particular because of all the rapid advances in technology, AI technology, robotics, laboratory grown foods. Um, I don't want to be eating that stuff. And it's so interesting. I was traveling with my boyfriend to Bali over the Christmas holidays, and I sat next to this guy. He was a scientist, and we started talking about our respective work and stuff. And I was telling him about the eco farm, and he was someone that what was he do? It's like um, something in biology, engineering. He was a professor in Florida, And so he was telling me about a colleague of his, a friend of his, that was a molecular biologist. And that's the guy that actually takes apart all the different molecules and isolates them. And they use those molecules in putting them together for things like laboratory grown foods,
Hmm.
And so I'm listening to him and I'm going, wow, that's like so interesting because that's exactly what I'm not gonna do, and I asked him, I said, "Do you eat like that stuff? Do you eat Impossible Burgers or laboratory created foods?" And he goes, "No, I don't touch that. It's all organic." And I asked him about his friend, the molecular biologist, and the same thing. He won't eat it. They don't eat it, but they're creating it. Just because we can do it, because we're smart enough and clever enough as humans to do that, doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for us.
Hmm.
You know, when I'm looking at all the chronic illness that comes across my path every day, and I look at the histories, and uh, most of my people, it's so interesting, is that you don't see obesity, which is rampant. I mean, for the most part, where I'm talking about my clients now, and most of them eat pretty healthily. So I'm like, what's making them so ill? And I'm coming to learn, I'm taking all classes at OSU, Oregon State University. They have a small farms program here. I've been learning about farming because I know nothing about it. I'm not a farmer. I just have the property. And a lot of stuff is coming across my Instagram page about regenerative farming because that's what I'm interested in now. And I'm learning that our food, we've got a sick food system, and our sick food system is fueling a sick care system. And my clients, the result of that, you know, we're not eating as healthy as we think we are because our food and the soil that the food is grown in is sick. So
For your personal practice, when you're sitting with someone, I'm going to just shift it a little.
you're
You
breaking up. I can't hear you. I don't
Oh,
know why.
for your personal healing practice, and you as a healing presence, can you take us to when you sit with someone after you've gotten their details? How has it evolved over 24 years, how you sit with someone and how there may be more going on than just at the verbal level? Can you take us through the evolution? Is there a way that you use your hands? Do you see light on a person? Is it just your presence and you get centered to make sure you're helping set the table for their own release? Can you use your words to describe how, not typically, but how often it is with a lot of different folks over the years, how you've sat with someone to do what you do?
Yeah. So on going back, because your first question was like, how has my work changed since the pandemic, right?
Well, for 24 years, over the course of 24 years,
24. Okay. Yeah.
you may have not used your hands at all. Today, you use your hands. I'm not sure of the
Yeah.
details on it. You may see the energy on folks. There's plenty of Reiki people who feel it, but they say they don't see the light. Others who
Mm,
say they see it.
mm,
And there's
hmm.
like 50
Yeah.
categories of Reiki people. So everyone's different how they approach healing.
Yeah. 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 So, um, I don't work with anyone in person anymore since the shutdown, and I was forced to learn how to use Zoom, which I was really afraid of. But once I learned how to do that, it's been incredible because even though I was working with people overseas before Zoom, it was through like FaceTime or WhatsApp or something, and now the Zoom technology allows me to record the session so that my clients can hear the session afterward. Because when we're doing a deep process, I mean, I don't remember what I say, and they probably don't remember what they say. So if they can listen to it again afterward, it's very helpful in the process of healing. Um, so that's one aspect, and then so my holistic approach is very grounded, very practical, and the energy portion of the work just comes through during certain processes. So one of the processes that I will use to get people out of the rational thinking mind, right? I want to say what differentiates my um, spiritual approach from traditional cognitive and behavioral therapy is that um, I'm able to get people out of this like thinking mind where all the protection mechanisms originated down into deeper levels of the heart, the soul, and the subconscious through a technique called somatic dialogue and others similar to hypnosis, but a little bit different. So I guide them through those deeper levels. I close my eyes and tune into them at the same time. And then I have them dialogue with those parts of the body that are holding on to the tension, the stress. It's not always the place in the body that the injury is at, you know. So it's interesting. And 98% of the time, when we're working at those deeper levels, what comes forward is information from early childhood.
Mm.
And when that information comes forward, then we move into the healing portion of the work. And the healing portion may include looking at that inner child that resides inside the adult, the 3 or 4 or 5 year old that has been traumatized, that suffered something, or maybe it was not even a big trauma. Maybe it was something as simple as a misunderstanding of the adult world that didn't make sense to the small child, and so they adopted some kind of belief system that was very disempowering. So we're also looking at the inner saboteur voice that resides on the subconscious level and that could be creating suppressed mental and emotional stress, and working with those two areas to heal that inner child that may have suffered some trauma or neglect, and to transform that inner saboteur voice into an inner ally to support that person's goals for health, for wellness, for successful career, relationship, whatever goals that they have. That's how we approach it.
Has it been fun the whole 24 years? Has it evolved so that you've found an easier way to do it? That you just relax even more, you're even less involved in a way verbally because you just know how to set the table again, get them to begin the process of letting go of their own words, their ego, their subconscious, conscious, down into their heart. Can you describe how it's transitioned a little, or how it's shifted a little, or where you're finding even
Mm,
more joy?
gosh, I mean, I'm in joy all the time. And I mean, I've been doing this for so long, and it's been such a graceful process for me and, kind of growing and expanding. And it's such a graceful process for my clients. Um, the first session that I have with someone, I see all the pain, all the upset, the, trauma, the guardedness. And at the end of our first session, they have hope and they see a possibility for, changing and healing. And by the end of the second session, they're like, wow. I mean, there's so much. This is like the fast track. And that's the feedback that I've gotten from my other clients that have told me that, wow, working with you for, the 8 sessions that I did, or even sometimes even less, has given me more inner shifts and growth and healing than in years of past therapy. I mean, that's really powerful. And I get to see miracles happen all the time, with my advanced stage cancer clients. Doesn't mean that everyone is going to uh, survive a cancer diagnosis because they're all stage 4 that come to see me. And I'm not in charge of that. And who is in charge of that is something beyond our human experience, you know? So a great deal of the healing is where someone that has a stage 4 cancer diagnosis is facing that greatest fear, which is death, and looking at it through a spiritual perspective, looking and acknowledging that each one of us is a spiritual being first, having our own unique human experience on earth. And that means that we arrived on time. We're meant to be here now, regardless of what our situation is, regardless of what we were born into. We are meant to be here now, and we're all going to leave. And we don't know when our exit ticket is or how that, the method is going to be. And yeah, and so getting to that place of surrender to the ultimate, I guess the ultimate exit for us all is a great stress reliever, right? When you can make peace with the inevitability of death, you can live more fully in the present and yeah, more fully in your loving and just be joyful and grateful for each day that we have,
Hmm. Can you talk to us about your path also from Santa Monica to now? Have you had the universe step in ways that you still scratch your head about, laugh about? If you flash back to that one memory, that one time with, it could be with animals, nature, just something happened that was special, serendipity, synchronicity, angels stepping in, the universe stepping in, something that
Mm,
couldn't have just happened on its own. It was, I'm going to
mm,
use an expression, divinely guided, but just something more than human thinking, more than the human experience. Can you talk to us about just a couple of those that either made you laugh or you love flashing back to those if it's been a particularly hard day, hard session, it just restores the well or refreshes you, brings the
mm,
faith back all the way. And faith, religious, non-religious, just trusting that life is.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had a lot of remarkable spiritual experiences that have really deepened my understanding of the soul and the soul's journey and why we're here in our human form and what we're meant to be doing here. And I think the first profound one was when my boyfriend died,
Hmm.
and that was back in let me see, it was June 29, 2002. And we were camping out in the desert in Death Valley, and we were with a group of friends, and we used to go out there for like summer solstice gathering, and um and that particular visit was our 5th anniversary, and he died out there.
Hmm.
He died of heat stroke.
Hmm.
And how it happened, or the guys had gotten, or 3 of them had gotten up early in the morning, and they hiked to the upper springs. They were going to clear them out so that we could hang out there that evening. The, uh, the desert at night with nothing around is incredible. And so were coming back from their hike, and Ben, my sweetheart, was saying, "Oh, let's pick up the pace and get back quicker. Look at me, I'm not even perspiring." Well, no one recognized that, and especially him, he didn't recognize that when his body stopped perspiring, he had already entered the advanced stage of heat stroke. His body was starting to shut down. But because he was like a bodybuilder and outdoorsman, these guys, they were used to challenging themselves against nature all the time. And so he probably didn't pay attention, powered through it, came back to camp where I was. He still seemed perfectly fine. He didn't exhibit any of the earlier warning signs like slurring of speech or dizziness, or he seemed perfectly fine. So it was very hot. It was like 120 degrees in the shade. So we took a nap, and while we were sleeping, he woke me up by snoring. And so I said, "Honey, wake up, you're snoring." And he didn't answer. And I shook him again. And I sat up and looked at him, and his eyes were a blank stare, and these guttural noises were coming out of him. And he wasn't responding. So I screamed for help. We had two doctors there with us. We had an intern surgeon. We also had a dentist. They knew to start CPR immediately on him. Um, I eventually took over for giving him the breath, and other people were alternating on the chest compressions and keeping the count. And had I had an out of body experience then,
Mm.
which was very interesting. I was, you know, up above, looking down on myself, looking down at Ben and this band of people that were around him, massaging him, giving him the breath that I was giving him the breath. and it was so strange because I had this bird's eye view while I was of this bizarre event that was unfolding while I was also an active participant in it at the same time. And so that was one thing. And then, I came back into my body. Someone was able to radio for help. It took the paramedics an hour by helicopter from Las Vegas to get there, and we continued working on him. We never revived him. He was already gone, which we learned later. Um, that was one thing. And then back at our house, we had just moved into this darling little house together, 1906 Craftsman Cottage. And 10 days prior to going on this camping trip, we had moved, unpacked everything so everything would be perfect when we got back, right? Then I came back without him. And his twin brother, Bert, came back with me and was helping to unload the truck and all this stuff. Oh, there was other stuff that happened too, but I'll get to that. Anyway, um, so one day I'm like trying to figure out how to get his computer working. And I'm in his office that he set up. And all of a sudden the printer printed a page out. And the only thing that was on that piece of paper was a little heart in the upper left-hand corner. That was it. It's like, okay, I get
That's
chills
awesome.
again when I shared that. I mean, it's really cool. And yeah, that was sweet. And there were all sorts, there was lots of little things like that. Um, during my grieving process, uh, our group of friends, we were, Burning Man people. We were burners. And so we were all planning to go to Burning Man that year. It was like just the next month. Um, or 2 months. Yeah. So I didn't want to be left behind by myself. I was still grieving. So, I went. And that particular trip, I also climbed Mount Whitney, which was something I felt that he was there helping me with that. I was hiking with his twin brother and I think another woman. And so at Burning Man, it was really interesting. It was a different experience for me that visit because I was grieving, and I spent most of my time out at the temple. And are you familiar with Burning Man at all?
A little bit, but go ahead and explain the temple if you could.
Yeah, the temple. So when people think about Burning Man, they envision the man that gets burned on Saturday night, and it's a huge event, and everyone's crazy and stuff. Well, the temple burn is the following night, Sunday night, the very last night of Burning Man, and during the week-long event, the temple is a place that has a completely different energy, or it's supposed to, as long as people understand that they're not supposed to be partying there. That temple is created each year as a sacred space and place for people to grieve, to release, you know, yeah, just sacred space. So that year I spent a lot of time out at the temple, and I was grieving, and I brought some of Ben's ashes there, and people were there to console me. And I mean, it was just what I needed. When you go to Burning Man, you always get what you need. So, yeah, so I spent time out there. And one night I was wandering the playa by myself and I just wanted to be alone. And I was holding onto this big stuffed duck. Someone gave me a stuffed duck. It was like my security blanket. So I'm wandering around with this big stuffed animal and I see a figure in front of me. And that figure is completely black, right? When you're out on the playa at nighttime, you're supposed to wear lights on your body, right? Because you can get run over. There's art cars out there, there's people on bicycles. You're supposed to have lights on. And I saw this figure ahead of me that had no light on him. And so something told me that I needed to talk to this person. So picked up my pace and I caught up with him. And I said, could I walk with you for a little bit? And he said, yeah. And so we walked arm in arm, and I'm holding on to this silly duck. And this guy says, he was a black man, all dressed in black. And he says to me, the first thing he says is, you're going to have to let him go. And I was like, I get chills again. And then I thought, well, maybe he's talking about the duck, you know? And then he continued with like these messages of letting go, because and we found ourselves. I took the conversation to be about grieving and letting go of a loved one, and I finally turned to him and I said, "Who are you? And what's your name?" And you know what he said? His answer was, "I'm your Archangel Michael."
Oh, nice.
So whoever this person was, or angel, or whatever he was, appeared in the night and gave me important messages that I needed to hear at that moment. And we walked for a bit further, and then we were approaching some fire, and he said, "I'm going to leave you now, and you're going to be okay." And I said, "Okay." That was it. So it's so interesting because angels and messengers can show up in any form.
Mm, I love it. Beautiful story. Are there any other, moving forward in time, more recently or just a decade ago, are there any other stories you want to share? Because you really have a good storytelling ability, the way you relate it. Do angels exist? Let's back up.
Gosh, I mean, yeah, I mean, for all the different experiences that I have had, I do believe that angels exist and they show up in a lot of different forms, and messengers show up in a lot of different forms. When I pay attention to the animals that show up, you know, when I'm working with people, either whether it's in person or even on a Zoom session, if animals show up in their lives, I'll look to the medicine cards, and that kind of goes back to Hawaiian Chunka, my Native American friend that taught me about calling in the medicine of the plants and the animals. So I will look at the messages and that come through animals, um, as well as other kind of things that may show up synchronistically.
Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna blow a little bit of sage from Texas to Oregon. We did this before the show. If I can find a feather, I found a red-tailed hawk feather. I've done this on all the
Oh,
shows. I've done this as a guest on other shows. For folks who are just coming in for the first time, give yourself a break. You don't have to be up top thinking. Allow yourself, your heart's already in the game with the universe, fully connected. So it's smelling without smelling, or catching, just letting go and letting your heart connect to the energy of the sage, the plant medicine. Let angels bring it to you. It doesn't matter which way you view it, or it does. Just allow, allow, allow. So catch the scent of sage, but if you're really wild, why go linear and settle for sage? Get sage in flowers. Get sage in your favorite ocean that you know can't be the back door. If you already live in Santa Monica, get the Florida Ocean, Seychelles, Costa Rica. An unofficial tip for folks. Oh, official tip is ask angels to make it nice. Get me out of my head, please. Angels into my heart. Let me smell some sage. Thank you. Amen. Rock and roll. Om Sai Ram. And if anybody's having extra trouble out there, extra way of turning up the volume is just breathe a little extra. Use the mouth. If you don't mind mouth breathing, breathe, 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 breathe. And I'll tell one dad joke. Bert and Ernie, Sesame Street. Bert offers Ernie ice cream. What's Ernie say? He says, "Sure, Bert." And if you can laugh, you know you're letting go. And are you catching it in Oregon right now?
Yeah, I am. It's interesting. And the flower that comes forward is pennyroyal. And pennyroyal is actually, it smells like mint. And it grows out in the wetlands here. And for the longest time, I didn't know what it was. And when I would go out there and walk and step on it, this aroma would just overtake me. And it was like, oh my God, this is so wonderful. What is it? And then I found out it's pennyroyal.
I love it. I love it. Are we still okay for the connection right now? Yes. Pennyroyal. Perfect. Okay.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about nature and how you view, let's say you have 5 sessions in a row, whether it's in a day over 5 days, because you only do one a day. I don't know which way you're attuned, but how do you take time for yourself to have the proper boundaries while
Mm.
allowing the flow of compassion, life, love, whatever you want to call it, healing presence? How do you either gear up, build up your Shakti, your mana, your chi? Everyone has a different way of saying it depending on where you're from. How do you build it up? How do you handle the ceremonial aspect of engaging someone this way versus you're done? How do you come down and make sure you stay intact?
Yeah.
Don't take it on.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Michael. In the beginning, when I was doing this work, I was seeing people 4 days a week, and generally, um, I can see anywhere from 3 to 6 people in a day, and it's all really intense work.
Yeah.
you know, and I realized that I was getting burned out. And so I only work with my clients 3 days a week, and that's Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And I, do other work on those other days off. I'm always working. But I don't see the clients those days. And for my self-care, I start my day nurturing myself first. So, living in Topanga Canyon, I'm in the mountains, I'm in wilderness, and so I will go for a morning hike. And I have a very special place that I go to. It's a rock, and I will do some yoga stretches, some qigong there, and meditation, and then I just drink in, the beauty of nature. It's so gorgeous, and yeah, it's ever changing. So sometimes I get really distracted taking pictures of everything because it's so beautiful. So I take care of myself first, and then I'm ready to start my day, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's been working really well. I don't get burned out. And then what I also in the evenings, what I do to take care of myself, I have hobbies, So I was riding a horse for a while. Now, since the eco farm, I don't have time for horseback riding anymore. But I do still enjoy tango dancing.
No. Nice.
So there's a community of people in Topanga and also here up in Eugene, Oregon, that are tango dancers. And so I get in as much of that as possible. I even built a dance floor up here in Oregon.
Well, maybe there's going to be healing retreats there involving some dancing down the road. We'll have to wait and see.
Oh,
I have, oh,
I've got so many plans for this place. I'll share a story about Oregon because in January, we experienced a tremendous ice storm here, and our beautiful big oak trees I don't know how old they are, but they're big. They've got to be at least over 150 years old. And two of them literally split in half.
Mm.
I mean, incredible. Huge tree splits in half. And we got hit so hard by this ice storm, and when I came up in the next month to kind of survey the damage, I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen to this beautiful oak savanna? It was so beautiful before, and now it's destroyed. But half of the tree is still standing. And, I'm again looking at, well, what is the metaphor in here? What's the message in this? And I realized that um, what I want to open up the property for is healing for veterans.
Mm.
And I'm looking right now for how to connect with the right veterans organizations to um, have veterans who have been wounded from war and traumatized through war to come to the property, learn about regenerative farming, possibly as a career option for themselves, and be able to heal themselves through nature, through working the land. And, in my work, I work with a lot of people that have had trauma. So I'm experienced with that. I'm not a war veteran, and I haven't been in the military. My brother was in the military, so it's also kind of an honor to him because he is the person. He and his wife bought this property 20 years ago, and he passed in 2020, and so now you know, this property is mine along with my sister-in-law, and I see it as a legacy property, and I'm steward of this property. And so what I'm creating at this eco farm and wildlife sanctuary is something that will live beyond my lifetime, beyond both of our lifetimes, and be passed on. And I'll make sure that that happens. Um, and so it will also be a place for people to heal through working the land and, through nature.
Mm. I love it. It's a place where people can slow down, pump the brakes a little, spend more time here, pay attention more. And I would add listening, and I'm going to have you define it because listening is, I think, a never ending process for simply allowing more. Your heart's already attuned to everything, but we do an awfully darn good job adulting to avoid
Mm,
here. The listening thing, does everything speak? I mean, if you're in India and India is a big place, it's like 40 countries. Some of those little mini countries in India, people believe that everything has consciousness, everything talks. The animals.
mm,
Have you had a moment where you were sure you got a kind word from a hawk, an eagle, a this, a that, a beaver? Can you share something where you had a real connection
mm,
and it still stays with you
mm,
today? It reminds you to listen more.
mm, mm. Well, I do listen. I listen to nature. I spend a lot of time by myself, and one of the things I love about being up here at the eco farm is working. Like earlier today, I was just shoveling a bunch of rocks and putting them in another area. I was working in the barn, dirty work, but fun. Um, and all sorts of information comes to me while I'm doing the physical work, you know, and and ideas come, which I think it's just the creative process too. And so quieting the mind, quieting that monkey mind that people may experience isn't just about sitting and meditating. It's oftentimes, and in my experience, it's while I'm doing something physical, like shoveling rocks, or cutting blackberry bushes, or, chopping wood. I had some people from a radio station come out up to the eco farm, and they heard about the ice storm damage, and they were inspired by my vision, and they wanted to come and like help. And I said, sure. And so this, one guy was chopping wood and chopping up logs, and he just shared that when he was a kid growing up, that his mom uh, she was into understanding about energy as well and said, look, you're having some problems or anything like that, go out in nature, move your body. And that's exactly what you want to do. So listening doesn't have to be in a cave, doesn't have to be, sitting quietly in meditation. It can be a moving meditation. And that's what working on the land is. It's a moving meditation, and that's what's going to take place here, whether it's doing the farm work or the ecosystem conservation work or, shoveling rocks.
Well, I'll give you 3 different quotes. They're all kind of holistic wellness, spiritual self-help, or from Winnie the Pooh. We'll start with Winnie the Pooh. Some people talk to animals. Not many listen, though. That's the problem, Winnie the Pooh. But I'll add, that's everybody's opportunity for growth, unlimited growth. Just listen more. Here's another one. This is Chogyam Trungpa, the Tibetan Buddhist monk. The way to experience nowness is to realize that this very moment, this very point in life, is always the occasion. And I'll do one more. Compassion, there's a million definitions of compassion, but I'd love to hear you talk about compassion next, or a reaction to one of these quotes. Treat all with kindness and love, and Angel said that once, and I'll do one more. Smile more, think less, do not permit others to dictate your well-being, own your own being and life. That was, again, a group of angels on that one. What's your reaction to all of those? And if you need to talk about compassion.
Yeah, I love all of those. And compassion is a really big one. And I tell my clients that all the time too. While they're going through the healing process, the 3 qualities that I emphasize that they need to work with within themselves is the qualities of patience for, through the process of healing, through the process of growth, compassion for themselves while they're going through this process of growth. There may be times that they fall back into old patterns that they know better. And so you want to be compassionate with yourself, not beat yourself up. And trust. Trust is the real big one, all capital letters with trust. Trust that right now and always, everything is unfolding for your highest good and for the highest good of all concerned.
Oh, I love that. I'll give another quote. An angel named Dale said compassion, and there's a million definitions of compassion, but compassion is just being and trusting the outcome to be of the highest intent for all. And I feel like that's just exactly what you said. Okay, I will give you a couple more fun quotes. This one may be from what I think is the littlest book in the world, the most fun book. I haven't pulled it off the shelf in over a year, if not longer. James E. Miller, to give him some credit, and it's called The Art of Being
Okay.
a Healing Presence. His books are so
Oh,
short. It's a 2-page, 3-page, 2-page chapter, and then some quotes from his history.
okay.
And I think he made his follow-up book a 1-page chapter. And it's just a reminder that just sitting the stillness when you've developed
Mm.
it and you're there with the intent to help another, a lot happens. And I feel like you embody that all the way with all you've been doing for a very long time. Okay, 2 more fun quotes. Man is ready for change. More compassion coming. That's a big, broad one. And then do it this way. You are in physical existence to learn and understand that your energy translated into feelings, thoughts, and emotions cause all experiences. Seth from the 1970s, Jane Roberts on that last one. How do you feel like folks are rolling through their lives, and either if they're flowing their energy one way, maybe out of here, they're accumulating a wagon train of baggage, Samsonite luggage, they're carrying around extra energy they don't have to carry. If they're here, they're very light, they're living, they're in the moment. I don't think there's any baggage that comes with love. There's a culmination of that, and there's a learning curve. You help people with paying attention more in that learning curve. Can you talk to us about those dynamics, that it didn't just happen to you? this is that opportunity for, again, paying attention, and it happened for you to learn something, or to grow, or to expand, or just to
Mm.
accept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, during our human experience, we're meant to encounter challenges. You know, we're not supposed to, we're not meant to be here to live in our bliss all the time. There's no growth in that. And so our human experience, this is part of the soul's journey. So we need these challenges that come up. The important thing to remember is your relationship to each challenge. And what I mean by that is the meaning that you bring to it, right? So are you beating yourself up while you're going through this challenge? Or are you recognizing it from a more of a bird's eye perspective of, oh, yeah, okay, this is a learning opportunity for me. This is what I'm meant to be experiencing right now. And I'm not going to do a spiritual bypass. Okay, a lot of people do that. They want to just be all love and roses. And it's like, no, because if there's something that's deeply seated, if there's trauma, if there's something else that's, inside that has not been healed, it doesn't go away just because you wish it away. So you have to first do the healing work at those deeper levels of the heart, the soul, the subconscious. Those are the levels that I work at. And that's also why, in my perspective, traditional therapies, cognitive behavioral therapy, misses the mark. Can give you a good intellectual understanding of patterns and stuff, but the healing doesn't take place up here. Healing has to take place at deeper levels of the heart, the soul, and the subconscious. And those are the levels that I work at. And so, yeah, don't judge the process. Don't judge the challenges. Don't judge those moments when you may fall back into an old pattern, you know, and up here you know better. That's okay. Just be kind to yourself
Hmm.
and know that that's all part of the process, and be present with the emotions that you're feeling. And, it's okay.
Which brings us to kind of a, we'll start wrapping it up, but this is going to be a lot lighter. Travel. Have you been to India, Machu Picchu, Peru, Costa Rica, East Asia, just Western United States, different settings? Where are you finding the sacred and special? Not that it isn't what you just said earlier, right here with you, wherever you are. You could be in the middle of Brooklyn. It's perfect. But
Mm.
can you talk to us just about any of your journeys, some of your journeys, or something that's been impactful that you still kind of carry with you, or it might have moved
Mm.
into, like that incense from India, or a certain musical thing, or a certain other,
Mm,
what have you?
hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I've been really blessed to have some really great bucket list trips. So I've been to India twice, which is amazing. The first time that I went was in 2018. And I was there when they screened Heal documentary at the Rishikesh International Film Festival, which was an amazing event. Um, and their beautiful opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies right on the Ganges River. Rishikesh was a great introduction to a crazy country that has such contrasts in it. I mean, it's so, overwhelming of sights and smells and everything. I did have one experience there, actually, well, a couple more than one. I did a meditation with this guru. Was it? It was at the Osho, Ann Osho ashram, and I was the only person. So I was with this guru, and I had a pretty powerful experience there, and just felt like this flood. I was like totally flooded with energy, and in the meditation that started just seated, I wound up, with my arms raised up and like ready to be taken away or something. It was pretty great. Um, and so that was, I just brought that with me. That was fun. And then let's see, my other experience in India, I been working with a woman, an Indian woman, from Bombay, and she, or Mumbai, and she helped her get through cancer. And when that kind of was in her history, then they were able to focus on her daughter's wedding. And they invited me to the wedding in India. And that was incredible. 4-day traditional Indian wedding. I think me and my travel buddy were the only white people there. And wow, the colors, the sights, the everything was like so incredible. They put us up in, at the where the wedding took place in a palace. So it was I think a 16th century palace, Maharishi, forget which one. Anyway, it was unbelievable. I have a YouTube channel and I have a lot of my travel adventures on there. So people interested, they can take a look at travel adventures, and look at some of the places that I've been.
Wow.
So that was really 2 great trips. Then I went to South Africa and went on safari, photo safari, and 6 days at this wonderful place. Oh my gosh, that was, I mean, since I was a little girl, I always wanted to go to Africa. My grandmother one of them was a world traveler. The other one on my Italian side, which is a round, plump, Italian grandma. But my other one was very sophisticated, and she, traveled the world, and she would come home from her travels, and as a kid, family would get together and we'd sit down and look at her slides
Hmm.
from all of her travels. And my favorites were always Africa and the animals. And I so wanted to go there. And so I was finally able to do that. I think it was 2 years ago. And that was remarkable to be up close with these animals. I mean, we saw all the big five, and there was one, oh my gosh, Rambo, I think is his name. This elephant, an African elephant. This was at a rescue place, and these elephants were not confined at all. They had keepers that would wander with them everywhere. And there was a male and a female, and the male was huge. I mean, I've never seen an animal so big, huge, huge. And they knew that if they came to this one area every day, that they would get like these treats. So they would show up, and tourists would show up and, sit in these little bleachers, and here's this tremendous animal. And we got to go up and like touch him. I had food, and he opened his mouth, and I stuck my arm all the way up this animal's mouth and smeared food on his tongue. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. It was just so incredible. And the and what I learned about these elephants, it's so interesting. They're so big, they communicate through the soles of their feet,
Hmm.
you know, and the rumbling that takes place in their body and then their digestive tract transmits through their feet into the soil, and they communicate with other animals, other elephants, could be miles away. It's like, that's incredible. They also mourn you know, the death. It's like, oh, it was, I mean, Africa was such a moving experience. It's hard to put into words. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's really special.
hmm. Okay. Oh, and I should mention I'll be a show host again for just 1 second. You took me to Africa, so let me get back to business here. Folks, if you're enjoying this, just share, like, comment. I mean, first enjoy it, obviously. What else? Subscribe, and also please put a comment down what you've enjoyed, what you've related to. I'll mention Kelly Noonan Gores, the film director for the Heal documentary, was our guest. It was early January of 2024, so that was episode 51, January 7th. You'll find her there. She gave a great interview. And we have gone to 2 episodes a week again from June 1st. It was only supposed to be to August 25th. That's what I heard from the universe. But we're booked out for the rest of the year. And I think for sanity purposes, we're going to go back to 1 show a week, mandatory for at least January and February, and then see what happens. We'll see. With that, what would be a final takeaway? Is there a mantra you want to, or a reminder you want to leave us with of how big everything is, how flowing it is? If we just allow more, smile more, breathe more, think a little less. What's your,
Mm.
after everyone you've seen, and if you could have headed them off at the pass, it's a Western, you're wearing the white hat. How would you have headed them off at the pass? Not that they didn't get exactly the experience that they've kind of signed up for in a way, and it's a beautiful experience. It's more love, ultimately, hopefully. How would you have headed them off at the pass 20 years earlier, 5 years earlier, 2 weeks earlier? What's your reminder for all of us that we could do a little more of?
Mm. Trust the process.
Mm. I had my guardian angel say to me,
Okay.
because you look at, you can be hard on yourself. I spent 20 years in New York, so I've got this nice big thinking brain that's like, wow, I could have gotten the last 13 years of my practice done in a year and a half, from one level. And I'm happy about it the other way. But it was, her message to me was literally respect the path then and now. And I
Mhm.
love that. I mean, we need reminders all the time. I feel like I'm pretty appreciative
Yeah,
most of the time, but I slip up, everyone slips up. Welcome to being human.
right.
So, Dianne, Porchia, thank you very much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. It was wonderful having you on. I felt the vibration. I hope the audience did, and for years to come, because we're a growing show. So hit that subscribe button, that like. Is there a final bit of advice again? What's your favorite author out there, your favorite movie besides the Heal documentary that you're in, and you are incredible in
Mm.
it? You actually can feel the healing you're doing for that individual.
Mm.
What's your final bit about how love, like, I'll give a quote. I think this is from The Big Mary in the Sky. Love isn't everything. Open your eyes to see love. Love, positivity, which is abundance, as a constant. How do you put it as a reminder that everything around you is speaking, alive, flourishing? You just have to slow down a little bit to pay attention. What's your
Yeah.
version of that?
Um, Slow down, walk barefoot in the grass, and breathe.
I love it. Dianne, Porchia, thank you very much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love all over again.